And, I've interviewed David many times. I know David. And he was a big champion goalie and then BBC reporter, announcer. And then he, in the early 90s, got the Christ consciousness thing and said he was the Christ and dressed up in turquoise and went on television. And but if that's his way of breaking out of the matrix and his way of saying I'm me, I'm free, I'm different, I don't care what you think. I mean, that's an exercise that helps you. Whatever. I don't think he's the Christ, and he says he didn't mean it like that. He meant Christ isn't all of us now, is what he says. And then everything he says about the banking system, compartmentalization, it's all true until he puts that cherry on top. And in my opinion, it's not a cherry he's putting on top. But I mean, that's what he's into. And I mean, are the souls of these people, are the minds of these people psychopathic and cold? And I mean, I wouldn't call their minds reptilian because there's no real passion there. I would call them it's just sick, predatory, and hot-blooded. I mean, these are human beings doing this. There's a certain allure because we don't want to believe that our own species did the type of things that Hitler and Stalin and Mao and others did. How long do we have, Professor?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. Go ahead, sir.
You said that the editors, the majority, I think it's the top 50 newspapers were ex-CIA associated. Then how
According to the 1977 declassified...
okay, that was during the 1970s when all the...
Yeah, and now it's got more sophisticated and broken up into other federal agencies.
Okay, my question is how would that benefit the government to expose Watergate when that took away executive power as opposed to increasing executive power?
Well, you see, you bring up the question, in case the mic didn't pick it up, of if the CIA ran, and that's a rough number, it was more than that, but I actually scaled it down because I want you to go look. You're going to find out it's more. The top 50 editors were on government payroll, many of them CIA. They came out again in the late 70s, they were on the payroll. Operation Mockingbird. And then you said, well, if that's the case, why did they then go after Nixon, which weakened executive power? The case is, it was declassified and admitted that the CIA, and I've got stuff going back to the 50s where Kermit Roosevelt's writing to Eisenhower, writing about the CIA's control of the media and their people in the media to plant stories in editor positions. So what I'm saying is, that's verified. Number one, the government admits it. I don't build a reality off of, does it make sense from this view of why would the government go after Nixon? Now, the answer to it, of course, is a huge, convoluted, complex situation that I've been looking at the Nixon era and what happened there for 15 years, and I don't claim to be an expert on it, though I've interviewed scores of experts. But basically, Nixon wasn't playing ball completely with the AIPAC Israel lobby, and he also wasn't playing ball. Well, he gave interviews to Harper's magazines and said he didn't like the occultic orgies at Bohemian Grove. That made him real mad because he wouldn't take part in that. Go look it up. There's also an audio file of him talking about it. The most goddamn faggy thing you'd ever seen. I'm just saying that's a quote from the president. So he wouldn't do the rituals. He wouldn't bow to Israel. He was upset about the transfers of the bomb out of this country. And at that point, they already had control over the committees in the House and the Senate. And so they removed Nixon that way. And there's no doubt that Woodward and Bernstein are sophisticated shills. Certainly Woodward. I don't know about Bernstein, but they're chosen. I mean, the owners, the Grahams, the owners of the Post, have been involved in the Council on Foreign Relations, the Anglo-American ruling British government that was set up here when they failed the League of Nations, since 1922 when it was set up, officially in 22, really set up in 21. And the Grahams have attended every Bilderberg Group meeting since then. And again, that's where they set the policy, they decide what the policy is going to be every year with the European and U.S. elites. And then it's distributed down to their roundtable groups that are the real imperial management governments or viceroys. Kind of like the British East India Company managed India. It's the same system. The empire learned to take its flag down, okay, and then run up the local flag and then stick a figurehead out there, and they found that the people, depending on which, they even bragged about it, would take 4 times the abuse on average. 4 times.
Do you think that the government is efficient enough to control us? It seems like one of the big problems with any government agency is it's just so inefficient. That, I mean, how are they able to get their act together enough to...
That is one of the most common questions I get, okay? If the government is so inefficient, how could they carry out 9/11? Well, how could 19 hijackers come in from a cave do it? But let me expand on that, because it's a very important question. They could keep the Manhattan Project secret for 4 years with over 100,000 people involved. They could keep Tuskegee, black men being, first they said getting syphilis and not being treated and allowed to spread it, and it turned out being given syphilis for almost 50 years until they exposed it. Went on from what, the 20s up until the 60s. 40 years. Go look up Tuskegee. Atomic soldiers. They took over 10,000 children. This is even in Newsweek. They tell you later about it. And they take women in bases and they'd say, we're going to give you pills for your baby, vitamins. They'd be uranium, plutonium. And they'd be ready for her to come in and have a miscarriage. It was really good of America to see what radiation did. Our government paid the equivalent of $3 billion to Israel to radiate 110,000 of their Sephardic children in a race hygiene program that went on from the 50s until about 1962. Many of them died on the spot. It was called the ringworm children. They tell them your children are going to have the dental work or be checked for ringworms, a common fungus that grows in a circular ring. So that's what goes on. They keep all that secret, and then later they come out with it. And I can list hundreds of other admitted cases of similar things. They can shoot a cruise missile down your chimney. They tell you they're inept, and the bureaucracy at the bottom of the pyramid is meant to take your time and your energy and bog you down for serfdom, because the elite is always competing against the middle class throughout history and waging war on it to debase it and reduce it to a large subjugated mass that cannot climb up out of that. And so you have specific professional echelons in government that, again, set the policies in long-term strategic 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, 100-year elite empire plans. They write about this. Carol Quigley, Tragedy and Hope, almost 1,000 pages. Bill Clinton's mentor, head of political science. Okay, Georgetown University. Go read it. I have. Read it. You need to read him. Talking about, I went into the elite's files for 2 years. We run everything. We run the communists. We run the fascists. We're taking over. It's British roundtable groups. Okay, this is how it works. This is how it operates. And it's real. Folks, they brag about it. Helmut Schmidt, Men in Powers, Political Retrospective, German Chancellor says, we do rituals in Germany at groves, but I like the Druidic rituals we do in Northern California at the Bohemian Grove, the thing Nixon didn't like. We're the Bilderberg Group. We set the policy for the world. He wrote it, German Chancellor. But they know 99.999999 do not read books like that. Okay? They're in control because they are control freaks. They're sophisticated and they're ruthless. And they do make mistakes. Flight 93 got shot down, so it didn't make it to its target. You could argue the Capitol, but a lot of people believe Building 7, so they blow it up. A lot of people go public. The head of the Defense Language School went public and said, oh, those hijackers were trained at our base. Those are government agents. Mr. Springman, the head of the U.S. Embassy in Canada, I interviewed him, went public and said that they had U.S. security clearances, they were government agents. So it's been in the Canadian papers, I've interviewed him. I go on for 600 plus slip-ups they made. They're not perfect. They just know you're simple. Not because you're stupid, because you've been taught how to be simple and keep your focus in a limited area with blinders. Very focused. And they know it's scary to face the truth. And the most common other question is, why am I still alive? That's because there's millions of us speaking out and millions of us involved, and because we're resisting tyranny on 100 fronts, and I also believe in God, and I believe that we're doing the right thing, and I know that we're having an effect, and if they kill me, it'll just make me a martyr. They'll probably, if they ever do something, God forbid, just set me up or do something to me, or, you know, I'm found with a heroin needle hanging out of my arm in a hotel room with a whore. I mean, that's the kind of stuff they do, folks. Okay? God bless you. I want to thank your great professor for having me. Now I'm off. 30 minutes I'm on the radio. Anything else, Professor?